Ooh, I don't have to actually turn on the computer sound. Hey, that's progress. Hey, everybody. We'll wait until we get sound confirmation that sounds good. Usually by Steven.
Yeah.
But we're actually doing a live stream in person.
It's our live stream.
It's the most live our stream has ever been.
Have we done a live stream for exploring the libraries before? Because I know when you did the live stream with the designers, I was on a couple of those.
Yes, that's true.
But not actually exploring the libraries. I think
Yeah.
this is our first ever.
In 42 episodes, this is the first time we've met in person to do an Exploring the Library. It's because it's so late at night. This is my dinner time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the live stream. I'm going to go straight to dinner. I don't got time to travel.
So you're saying next live stream we'll do it at dinner?
We're just at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
Audio sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See, it's always Steven who's first.
Yeah, so Devin, Darren, and Brad, you gotta speed it up.
Yeah.
Don't let Steven take first place. As soon as you get in here, say sounds good, whether there's sound yet or not.
Oh, that'd be so bad. Then I can't trust anybody.
Steve says the Genesis Cooking Show.
Nice. All right. So, do we have any announcements? Any things we need to go over?
I don't think so, unless you want to spoil and excite anybody with anything new. We've already said we are having a championship.
Yep, we already mentioned. I mean, our last live stream was all about the championship.
I've already forgotten that. I live in the now.
1 week was too long ago. So, yes, championship. We actually did sit down today to talk about quite a bit of the details. So hopefully the championship we'll be able to roll that out, and it's going to be really awesome. We did talk about rolling out organized play soon to more stores, so that's going to be happening in the next little while. A bunch of new videos came up on YouTube. Have you seen all these?
I think I've started watching most of them.
Like, there's this period, I think late last week, where it was really dead, and all of a sudden I was thinking, okay, maybe we'll get 1-2 videos a week, and then just this week, earlier this week, there's 6 videos that dropped last night or something like that.
Yeah, it's all at the same time. I don't know why. They must be working together to bombard the same time.
Yeah. So that's been really cool. And I think that's about it. That's really coming down the pipeline. We got some other cool announcements, but we got to wait until things get more confirmed. Yeah. It's so hard not to just look at each other when doing this. And it's like, oh yeah, there are people here. So many likes.
Olgi Kakore sounds like a dinner dish.
I can't even think of that.
And then ZW42 says so many legs. For the Olgi, I assume.
Well, I mean, people really like the crab legs.
Yeah, that's what I was. As soon as I said legs, I was thinking that exact same thing.
All right. So what are we talking about today? Let's switch cameras because we do have a second camera. See, it's right here. So you don't have to just stare at our faces all the time. Where's this other camera? I got this. I'm not crazy. Haha.
We've got an extra cooking since we started. Which way is it needed? Yeah. That's good.
Now we don't have to always be staring at the computer. They could just be staring at this. Makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be talking about the stack today.
Yeah.
I want to start off by talking about things on a more of a game design front.
Okay.
So this is gonna be more me quizzing you about a few things. So Andrew asked this in Patreon, and that's why we're doing this. I was mentioning it to the Patreon members. I don't know what we were going to talk about tonight. And he was like, all right, break down the stack. What does the stack do? How it works? Why is it important to the game? What is the mechanic? And when and how does it result? So I want to start with, why is it important to a game?
Why it's important to the game? Okay, let's just pretend the stack didn't exist. You have a 1-1, I have a 1-1. My 1-1 steps up, it kills your 1-1. That's it. Nothing else can happen. Let's pretend. Now you could say that this still kind of happens because I step up, I swing for 1-1. The opponent swings for 1-1. But that was my choice to step up. I never needed to step up. I could have double moved away. Never needed to do that. So the stack is more important for a follow-up. If you go in for the 1-1s, this whole combination goes off. I now have responses back and forth. it's not just my 1/1 swings at this 1/1. Now my champions can now respond to these attacks. They could either buff, they could protect, they could heal. Now you have a game. It's not just I swung first, I win.
So here's my counter to that.
Okay.
Chess does not have a stack. And we do get compared to chess a lot.
That is correct. Chess doesn't have cards. At the end of the day, I would say, I'd say chess doesn't have cards. But so the question is, what if chess did have a stack?
So I would actually argue that the entire sequence of the game of chess is actually just one long stack.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
Because what is the stack at the end of the day? It's your order of operations. It's what things have happened and how do you resolve them? In what order do you resolve them, right?
Yeah.
Chess's stack is a little bit more dynamic because decisions are happening mid-stack at a lot larger of a pace.
Mm-hmm.
Where in Genesis, like if I were to play, I mean, we have kind of a stack we're going to mock out here, but like just say I play Gut Punch against a Giant Scorpion, right away you're making the decision of responding back.
Yes.
But if we got chess pieces, you know, you got a rook and I got pawn, you're just gonna move in and eclipse. My next unit's moves are part of that additional stack.
Yeah.
And there's the turns revolve around the stack. At the end of the day, it's the way your game resolves moments in time.
Yeah.
Right? So there's another thing to the stack. There are two mathematical principles that work in contrast to each other. One is the stack. Do you know what the other is?
Go ahead and tell me.
It's the queue, right? So stack is last in, first out, right?
Yeah.
The queue is first in, first out.
Gotcha.
It's the queue to, if you're at a store and you're buying stuff.
Yeah.
It's your line, right? It's the resolution of, do you favor the person who's at the back of the line or the person at the front of the line? So that's kind of the difference between those. Is there any kind of sign up on Haunted Castle gaming site to understand how many players there are currently, kind of like DCI membership for MTG? Soon?
That is the organized play we were just talking about earlier on. Matt Schrockman just came in, so may have missed the beginning. We are going to be rolling out organized play to more stores, but when you register to organized play, then yes, on there.
Yeah. If you are interested in signing up for that, we might as well share out the link now. I don't see any harm in that. So it's geo.genesisboc.com. So let me add that in here. geo.genesisboc.com. And that should give you the opportunity to register as a player.
Yeah.
Does it show all the other players that are registered right now?
I'll be honest, I've never looked.
I think in the leaderboard you should be able to see
some players. That being said, it's only been at 2 stores, so don't expect big numbers.
Yeah. This is really early beta stage. So we were talking about the stack and the queue, right? Yeah. So when I was in really early stages of Genesis, I tried designing a queue system because I was like, oh, Magic uses a stack. We got to be different than Magic. Let's use a queue. So I decided to use a queue. You know how silly a queue looks like in this game? So it's like, okay, I come up and attack the Giant Scorpion. So that's the first element on the queue. Then Giant Scorpion attacks back. Then I respond with this, you respond with that, I respond with this. Well, the resolution order is this happens first, then this. Basically, there is no interaction.
Yeah.
Because you can't respond to anything.
Yes.
It's just, it is what it is. The stack allows for a more dynamic gameplay. And one of the things I love about games versus movie, TV show is interactiveness, right? That's the big differentiating factor between, if you look at a video game and you look at a movie, right? The big differentiating factor is how interactive it is.
Yeah.
And it's really just a scale. The least interactive thing is a movie. The most interactive thing is like full-on RPG, like a LARPing or something like that.
You can make a movie interactive.
Yes, yeah. And then it starts blurring the lines. What's the difference between an interactive movie, like one where I've seen the Kimmy Schmidt one, where you got to choose how it ended and stuff like that. What's the difference between that and something like a video game where it's a text-based video game and you make decisions?
Sure.
What's the difference, right? So that is kind of a bit of a history of why we have the stack and why it's important to a game. It adds the interactiveness. So Is there any comments I'm missing right now?
They're saying chess is what Genesis would be if everything was played at action speed.
Yeah, so Pokemon does not have instance or switch.
There is no instances in Pokemon. You are correct, yeah.
And that's a very I actually, for how simplistic a game it is, I actually really, really love the design system behind the Pokemon TCG.
Yeah.
Because it mirrors the video game really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it had to bring in collectible card game elements into it. But there are parts about it that I really, really love on the base level. And it just shows how good designers were who created the initial system for it.
Yes, I'll say I played the original Pokemon back when it first started, and it was really good.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just... Nowadays, there's a lot more focus, I think, on the collectability than the game itself. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
We're not here to about the design of the Pokemon. And I don't know what they do. I don't know their process or anything like that.
I was talking to someone and I was explaining to him how, like, in general, I try my best to talk positively about all our competitors because there are things that our competitors do that are very, very impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to forget about that. I don't want us to be constantly bad-mouthing them because there are things that Pokemon did that, like, I'm like, I could not design that better. Anyways, so we kind of answered this, but if you're given the question, what does a stack do?
It allows response.
It's
the short answer.
Yeah. I don't think there's much more you can really add to that. So, how does it work? Okay, imagine I'm a brand new player, and I was asking you, how does the stack work? How would you show that?
Whenever you play an ability, it goes onto the stack.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever somebody responds to that ability, it will also go onto the stack. After everybody's done putting abilities on the stack, it will resolve backwards.
Okay.
That's how I'd go with the basics, and I'd probably show it.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I really like about Genesis, and the one thing I find a lot of Genesis players do, is actually now draw out the stack. They actually take their cards and stack them up.
Yeah.
So when I'm teaching new players how to play the game, and just say, where were some of the other cards? So just say we had a random stack. Just give me like 2-3 cards here. So we're going back and forth. Like I start here, they do this. I don't know how much of this is on screen, but
this is the master just throwing cards around.
No one has any idea what I'm doing. This sounds all garbly. I sound like a demon, which is actually my normal voice. So this is just say this was the random stack that we had. We had a Reign of Era, Malicious Persuasion, Gut Punch, and Rampage Toss, and playing against my opponent. And I'll be like, okay, this is called a stack. And the way you resolve this is you take all these abilities and you stack them up one on top of each other, and then you just resolve it from this way down. And you ignore anything else that's below it. You just start resolving one at a time, until you get to a point that the entire pile is done. So, for a lot of people who don't know, I actually got into some trouble early on when I implemented the stack and I actually put it in the rulebook. A lot of people were telling me that you can't do this. Magic has it in their rules, and you get sued. And so, first of all, yes, Wizards of the Coast has done a lot of interesting patents. I'll give them credit for their business acumen, and they did patent the concept of tapping, which there's a full-on patent for that. They never filed a patent for the stack because they can't. It is a concept from mathematics and applied a lot in computer science. So that's how I know it.
Yeah.
Because first semester, I think second assignment was build a stack in Java. Like you had to build a stack that could push and pop things off. And that's actually the terms. It's push and pop. So yeah, you can use a stack. If you're a game designer and you want to use a stack, you can use the stack. I compare the stack to a pile of dishes. You can't clean the bottom one until the top one has been cleaned. I like the dishes. I use pancakes. I don't know why. In my mind, it's a stack of pancakes, and I eat the top one until I get to the bottom one. So, yeah, I think a lot of what you said is exactly the way I would do it. It's a lot about showing the actual interactiveness. All right. So, why is it important to the game? What is the mechanics? And when and how does it resolve? So what is the mechanic?
what is the mechanic? I think it more has to do with the speed of abilities.
So yes, there is actually one thing that Magic did really, really well when they established the concept of the stack, and that was saying sorcery speed abilities can only be played when the stack is empty and they're at the bottom of the stack. They're the starters. You can start the stack with non-sorcery like instant speed, but it was brilliant to have that as a classifier between speeds.
Yeah. So
we have that in Genesis too. We have swifts and actions.
Yeah.
I'm sure no one can actually read that this is swift in action right here because it's so far away. But we got Rain of Arrows, we got Malicious Persuasion. Let's talk a little bit outside of the stack concept and about game design. How much of an impact does it put in a card? Does it put onto a card by making it action speed?
How much? Okay, how much of a what was it?
Impact.
Impact.
Like, how negative is it for a card to become action?
It depends. Okay, let me talk about Meditative Ascension.
All right.
If you guys don't know Meditative Ascension, it is a card from beta. I remember first understanding Meditative Ascension when I took a whole bunch of them in a draft. And then I tried to play them and realized they were action speed. Meditative Ascension says you cannot be targeted. That sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds like a great card. I can't be targeted. Love to use it. You know, my opponent starts to, target me with stuff. I go, ha! Meditative Ascension. No, that's an action speed. Oh, it is, yes. That was pretty much my response. I was like, it reads as a Swift. 100%, yep. It reads like a Swift. It's a defensive card, and that's terrible. I think, actually, that's a good pointer. I think a defensive card at action speed is just way bad. Like, we have Take to the Skies is another example of an action speed defensive card. It hasn't really bad. I think the best one is probably... what's the one that exerts and prevents 4 damage?
Heavy Defense.
Heavy Defense is maybe the best one.
Yep, that was
but
the one
it's still, if you are second, it is now way worse. If you're going second. However, if we now look at attacks, it's not as bad. The attacks with Swift are generally stronger because you get to respond, but you can start a stack with that, and then the response goes on, and use other cards to protect the slowness of that card.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, and this is part of the learning process of designing the game, is a lot of people think that because there's been so many other games in the past, it should be super easy to design Genesis, but there's so many elements that there's weird nuances, and a lot of things that I didn't learn until the game was actually designed out there. People started playing it seriously instead of me and my friends playing for shits and giggles in the basement. When people started taking the game really seriously, all of a sudden a lot of these flaws started coming out of nowhere. So one of the big things is, yes, defensive cards should be Swift speed. Any offensive card that is now Swift speed is also pseudo defensive.
Yes.
And any any card that's purely action speed should be purely offensive.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions because there's 4 different classes that we look at cards: offensive, defensive, control, and techie.
Yeah.
And there are control cards that could be action speed.
Yeah,
Neurom on Kendra is a great example of that. And techie cards, Dedicated Study, super played, and it's action speed. So action speed still has a place in the game. And I know I've seen this argument before of like action speeds doesn't make sense in Genesis, or that there's no point of making cards that are action speed.
I've not heard that.
Oh yeah?
I've heard that we need a middle speed. I've heard that. We need a middle speed in between action and Swift.
But I think what a lot of people are feeling from those sentiments isn't that the speeds are wrong or that the cards are poorly designed. It's a lot of that comes back down to the roots that as game designers, we haven't fully grasped what this game is all about, right? We're still learning, and it's still teaching us.
Yeah, I'd say there's some really powerful action speed stuff.
Yeah,
you look at Tsunami, Meteorite, Rain of Arrows.
Yeah,
Like all these, there's very powerful action speed stuff.
Living Shadows.
Yeah, Living Shadows. Yeah, Epiphany.
We talked about dedicated studies.
Action speed's broken. Too strong. Speed up all the cards.
Oh my goodness! Imagine if everything was
Swift.
The game would go into chaos. So, I think, and then the second part that we do that's very different from other TCGs. So most collectible card games, I think, are trying to stay away from overusing the stack.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've already mentioned, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon doesn't use it at all.
Yeah.
Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Do use it, but not to the same degree that we are.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned as a designer was to just steer into it. It was a big component of how fighters work.
Yes.
And I think if we took that away from the fighters, they're already at a huge deficit in this game. Taking that away from them would hurt even more. And so, if anything, I was like, let's steer into it. Let's actually create stack as a keyword on cards. And I think that opens a whole new door of design space that, if we can do right, will give us so much value add.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited about that. All right. So, let's get into the last part. When and how does it resolve?
I think we've already explained this.
So,
not?
there is a few nuances, and some of them are Genesis specific. So when it starts resolving,
it's when there's no more responses from both sides.
So all players, so if you look at the game state, all champions and summons, but basically all players decide that they don't want to add anything more to.
I have a question for you, because this is actually a question I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
So we're just gonna, just for fun, Oni starts a stack.
Okay.
It's a gut punch. Let's just say. It doesn't matter. The cards don't actually matter. I don't know why I started it. Oni doesn't touch the stack.
Okay.
It then passes to Malik to respond. Malik says no. It then goes back to Oni at this point, because is this the first time Oni gets no, it's reverse. Okay. Sorry. Oni had the first response, right?
Nope.
No? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So how it actually goes is Oni starts the stack. Yeah. Oni, the character, started the stack. Let's say there are some other summons on the board. So, Oni started the stack with the gut punch, right? Then what it happens is as you go to Malik's team to respond, right?
Okay.
And then it goes back to Oni's team. It never goes back to a specific unit.
Yeah.
It goes to the teams. The same way the starting champion or the beginning of the round, when you go to determine which unit you want to start with. And that's actually something I want to add into the rulebook, the keyword unit, and to identify champions and summons. But when you are picking which unit to start with, it's your team to decide, right? Yeah. And it's the same way on the stack. It's the team that decides it. So, anyways, was that your question, or
I think you answered it, but we didn't fully get it. So at this point, I say no response. You say no response. That's the resolution point, right? Both have said no.
Yes.
There's not another go back here
no
reason. Just making sure. But yeah, I think
so. Once all the teams have said no, there's nothing more they want to add. The top ability on the stack resolves. The state of the stack has now changed.
Yeah.
The moment the state of the stack changes, not all cases where the state of the stack changes. But if something is removed from the top of the stack, then it's opened again, starting with the starting champion to determine what gets added. And if they want to add anything, and if they don't, no matter the decision, it goes to the other team to decide something, and then it goes, keeps on going from there.
So, Shrock, no, if I pass, and then Oni puts a second ability onto the stack, this is essentially a new stack at this point, and I will get another response window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one stack. It's just the state of the stack has changed. It's not just one element on the stack. We've now added a second element, which now opens the door for all players, all units, to decide if they want to add anything new to the stack. So, now, one thing that we did different in Genesis compared to Magic is that in Genesis, the stack goes, I add something, you add something, I add something, you add something. Or, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Magic, it stays with me until I don't want to add anything else. Then it goes to my opponent.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think this actually makes more sense. the way that we do it, because it's responsive based. It's weird that I play something, I get a response. I guess it's is it weird? I don't know. No, I'm going back and forth. But it's like, I can understand sort of doing like a 1-2 punch type thing, but it also doesn't benefit you to do such a thing usually.
Yeah.
When Magic does it like that, it's usually to almost stop your opponent from being able to play something. It's almost like a protection thing.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
And my understanding is you can hold on to it and resolve things within it and still hold on to priority.
Yeah.
I think it definitely probably, like, I'm guessing it works for them for a reason. Like, there's so much thought that goes into the rule design state of Magic. Something so fundamental, it had to have come up for a reason. Yeah. So I'm not going to say that our system's better or that their system's better. I think their system works great for them. Another part about Magic is that Magic is very much a turn-based game. Yeah. I do everything in my turn. I am done. Now it goes over to you to do everything in your turn.
Yes.
And that feeling is carried out into the stack.
Yeah.
Where for us, the game is so fluid. Yes, you have a turn where you go through your move phase and you're the only one who can play actions. But besides that, anyone can go at any time.
Yeah.
There's so many open slots for people to play things that there isn't this sense of isolation in the game.
Yeah.
And the board state shows that. Like, the shared 5x6 grid dictates that as well. So I think that gets carried through in the way we do the stack as well.
Yeah, for sure. To answer your question, Shroff, so you don't need a new stack. So what Sid was saying, whenever there's a new state of stack, so if Malicious Persuasion resolves, this is a new state of stack, so new responses can happen again.
Yeah. Alright, so Adam asked, all one stack, do things not resolve if there's no responses, and does that not reset the stack? So it is all one stack. Do things not resolve if there's no responses? So the moment there's no responses, then things start to resolve. You resolve them one at a time, and you give an opportunity between resolutions to see if anyone wants to add anything new to the stack or modify the stack in any way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't reset the stack. We still have the stack, and nothing from the stack goes away until its turn comes to get checked.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. Like, if we're in the state where Oni's here, Malik's here, I play Gut Punch, it's on the stack, and Malik does a backflip. And just say there were some other random things underneath the stack or somewhere in between, let's say like that. So there's that Gut Punch, there's the backflip. Backflip resolves. Even though Gut Punch here has an invalid target, it stays on the stack.
Yeah.
Because if Oni finds a way, just say she plays dodge and comes back into this moment where Gut Punch is valid, it resolves.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing, is that things don't get removed from the stack. The stack stays the same. Wow, there's a lot of
text. There was an earlier big one, too, that we missed.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
Lots of questions. Somebody has to calculate how many times we say stack this episode.
We just get a little stack counter. Ding, ding. Which ones have we missed?
That big Match Rock one.
I've never played. Hoping to soon. Yes, we've already arranged that for Thursday. Come on down to Heads or Tails. I mean, if you're free, when do you host events?
Sunday.
So, Sunday here. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Heads or Tails. Atlas Collectible in Waterloo on Mondays. I mean, I also know Ohio. They host an event on Saturday.
You can drive all the way to Ohio.
If you want to go down to Dragon's Den. I know Torchlight is more of a drop-in and just play, so if you're nearby Burlington. Alright, so, but I remember the early days of MTG, and many new features came out replacing original rules. I remember Mana Burn very fondly. Do you feel like there are aspects of Genesis that need to change, or does the gameplay seem to give enough creativity to players to design unique decks and combos? So, the thing about a TCG, and this is the thing I love about it, because I come from a computer science background, I come from a software background, and when it comes to software, things have to evolve, things have to grow, because what was standard practice in 1990 changed very quickly in 2000, changed again in 2005, and every like 2-3 years standard practice has changed with the way we write code, the way we experience have user experience. So your software always has to evolve. Genesis will evolve. And actually one of the things that pains me about Magic's latest evolution is that they changed their frames, but so many people advocated for the old frame cards to come back, and that hurts me as a designer, because and there's a really, really great video by Extra Credits, and they talk about this, is as a designer, you want players to play the latest version of your game because that's the one that you think is the cleanest. It is the fair, it has the most fair stats, the template is the cleanest, everything about it is the better, superior version. But players have nostalgia, and they want to play from when they first started, and they think that that version is the best. And you're constantly at odds, because even as a designer, you don't want to ignore your community. You want to make them happy. So Genesis will evolve.
Just this week, Ben showed a video of him opening his alpha, and everybody in the comments like, "Oh, look how great that alpha design was!" I don't think people realize that when we switched over from the alpha template to the beta template, we got 20 or 30% more characters that we could fit on a card. So High Dualis, for the life of us, would never fit on an alpha card. So, because it barely fits on a J2 card. So, like, things do need to evolve and grow, and I hope as a community you embrace that. We're not going to be perfect, and the game shouldn't be perfect. But that's just anyway. Second part of this. So, does the gameplay seem to give enough creative to players to design unique decks and combos? That's more of a you question than me. I would say yes. Especially, am I excited for the next round of more cards? Yes, because then I think it's going to extremely explode the amount of decks that are played. But I have essentially made a new deck every Sunday. I don't always win, but it just proves to me that there are decks that I would have just normally ignored because I thought they weren't necessarily the top tier meta, and that they can get there. They can get there. Sometimes it's a fight, sometimes it's a battle, but they'll get there.
So the thing I love about my Long Holy deck and my Idris Monster deck is those were the first two decks I ever created in any TCG in my entire life that were actually unique and good. I think the biggest part about it is I don't think there are enough people who are designing things in Genesis to explore all the different combinations. Titan decks as a concept is relatively new. That happened during COVID. Swarm decks are starting to come out there. That is very new because it was Raze that brought that in. And then on top of that, J2 now allows people to have the volume of cards that they need to make good decks. I think what we'll start seeing in the championship is real variety.
For sure.
Now, my concern is that will we see actual variety, or will players just play it safe and just go with the decks that they know work? Will we just see a whole bunch of Angel decks, or will we actually see some variety? So, I think that there is still a lot of space for design creativity for players. And if you're finding that standard is getting kind of boring, just play 4-player free-for-all. All of a sudden, so many cards become so much more valuable. Oh my goodness.
Well, the funny thing is, like, if we look through our first championship, Nubia wasn't even played up until that point.
So, competitive events leading up to the championship, no, Nubia was not played. And the big reason was Angels were not as accessible. In Alpha, and even in Beta, they weren't as accessible until you got into Welcome to JLR. But yeah, Nubia was not seen as a viable threat. Rain was not seen as a viable threat. And those are the two decks that, like, had the most amount of play in the championship. Now, what I want to see is more Thymos decks. Majority of the decks were Axon decks in the championship. The 19 championship, so 21 championship. I'm really hoping we see more Thymos decks. I'm really hoping someone brings in the Malik Baruch deck. That's gonna be interesting. So if a team, I think with this one we already.
We answered the stack thing. We answered this.
Okay.
Against that. JC needs a new Oni. Well, you guys go to organize, start playing at some organized play events.
Details. You can do it. I know you can get there.
I'll put this, zoom this up. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, Oni, the best champion, 1 affiliation, no ability, 90 aura. Woo. You could play this champion. Go to your local game store and demand that they do organized play.
Now, would you play Oni over Odara?
This is an Oni deck here. I was prepared to beat Sid with my Oni deck, but
okay. What does this respond to? You can respond to your own action swift, but the opponent's team gets to respond first. But it's sloppy play, so like with bolt shot, if you and the opponent doesn't respond, it's usually better to let the shot resolve and then start a new stack. If you want to bolt shot again, a new player mistakes is responding to a lack of response with more damage put on the stack because the opponent gets another chance to respond. Yeah. This is very true, and actually this is one of those I did not learn about this until the OTK decks started coming out. Because I was so used to playing Genesis with really large stacks.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where the OTK decks came out, people tried to build out the large stack and then played the evasion at the end, and then the OTK decks were like, wait, okay, I should resolve one attack at a time and keep the stack as small as possible.
For sure.
So despite the fact that we use the stack so much, the game itself incentivizes players to keep the stack small.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an interesting interaction, but we should check our messages.
Okay,
haven't finished going down from Newbie Night on Sunday.
Do you have... do any cards have abilities to delay where in stack they resolve? Not
currently. 1 o'clock on Sundays.
Do you do deck building tutorials so I can build before I learn to play, or can you do both in one sitting? I will point you towards the Discord, the fan-based Discord server, because Sunday nights on Tabletop Simulator they do the newbie nights.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go to genesisboc.com/new, and at the bottom of there is the link for the Discord server. So I'll put that into the chat. genesisboc.com/new. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll find the link to the Discord server. Join that, and then from there, who is the team that does that? I know you're part of it.
Steve, Will, me, Brad sometimes comes on.
Yeah, so join that, and that group will help you learn how to build your timeline. And
we're going to talk about a unique stack from this Sunday.
Okay.
This is actually Fang. Ignore that this is Malik. It is Fang. So Fang has a Scorpion right here. Fang has a Subjugation Strike and a Jump. So what Fang does, the newer player, and this is just because the nuance of the stack, comes here, rotates, and activates their Subjugation Strike.
So let me grab that and put that up on screen so people can see.
He's using the Sub Strike to kill the Scorpion. Now the Scorpion responds, hits him for 3, then the Scorpion dies from the Subjugation Strike. He now leaps to get far away from his opponent. So the small nuance I told him what he should have done was, since you come here, play the Jump first.
Mm-hmm.
If the Scorpion responds, use Subjugation Strike and kill the Scorpion, saving you 3 life.
Yeah.
And you end up in the exact same position, except you saved yourself 3 life. And it was the most smallest of nuances.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt you. If your opponent says no response, you were going to use your Subjugation Strike anyways.
Yeah. I think one thing that does separate a lot of the high-end experienced players from novices, it's not the card pool that separates them the most. It's usually their ability to manipulate the stack, put themselves in the advantage. It's the tactical element and the being able to think a few steps ahead. Those are definitely some of the biggest challenges that we see players trying to grasp. So if you can find yourself in a position to practice using the stack, then that's one of the biggest places to practice.
Complete separate note, now that it's on the board, and because he's probably not even watching at the moment, just because giving notes to stuff that's not even on the board here, I would have dealt with the Anja Tiger over the Scorpion. there was two creatures on the board. He could have killed either or, but your subjugation trait, as the Tiger has 5 health, the Scorpion has 4. So you could have killed this on a following turn, hopefully jumped to get into a position to kill this with your heavy attack. Now we're going too far. Back on topic, Sid. Stop getting stop getting distracted.
So I think we covered most of the things I can think about when it comes to the stack. There is definitely a lot of there's a lot of nuance on trying to navigate the stack. The thing I recommend the most is use the stack token cards or use something to represent the actual state of the stack. I used to carry around spare copies of my champion, so when I would play a champion ability, I would use that spare copy on the stack.
Makes sense.
If I had like the ideal situation, I would actually have like a stack slot here on the board for people to actually like use to create the stack.
Maybe we could actually take an extra slot, one for the deck. Stack.
It'd be deck, memories, and then stack. I think that's one of the things that sets Genesis apart from its competitors is that the stack is so fundamental. I know that Flesh and Blood and Universal Fighting System have this idea of like a combo or like a chain that you're trying to track.
Yeah, it's called the chain.
Which, I mean, it is their fundamental way of dictating the attacks, but my understanding is that their stacks are individual moments within.
Yeah, it's not like real stack, but it looks like it is. Yeah, it's individual. You're very right. I was trying to think about that.
Like, I play this attack, we deal with this attack. Once this is done, then we move on to this attack.
So that's the thing. No, you deal with one attack at a time. You do the attack. I played it 3 weeks ago. That's all. So I don't have the greatest experience of Flesh and Blood. But it's like you play your attack, your opponent responds to this attack, and then you play your next attack. As long as you have energy, your resources to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not even really that much of a chain. Anyway.
Yeah. The one thing I know with Universal Fighting System, like you need to track them because the things get progressively harder.
Yeah.
Depending on how many attacks you successfully landed.
Yeah.
That was actually a huge inspiration for the energy system in Genesis because I like the idea of physical combat being portrayed differently than magical combat.
Yeah.
And I think you get that feeling in Genesis, but not as it's a compromise on both states instead of the everything from both sides. Any other questions from the community as we just ramble on about random stuff?
I'll answer one question. I can build a deck and play in one sitting. Not everybody can. For the earlier question, I was asking about building a deck and then playing in one sitting. The Sunday Newbie Night, most of them are playing new decks they just started and created, so...
I mean, I can build a deck and play with it one sitting. I don't know how good it'll be.
Adam's on here, but I built him a deck last week. He said he wanted to play an Ogi Kokore deck, and I went, really? Okay. And then I built him it.
Yeah. I know, Ogoi, I suffered against it really badly in a draft once, because I went to go attack it, and like my only attacks were my built-in attack. I think I was playing Idris, so I had a built-in attack, and I had a bunch of cross punches. And I was like, I gotta kill this thing, but I'm getting hit for 9. Like, it was just so bad.
So I had I'll talk about Ogi Kokore for a bit. I had a problem building with Ogi Kokore for one specific reason. Was I wanted to play a Vod Hiss deck. And whenever I would put an Ogi Kokori in the 7G slot, I would look at it and just go, this costs the exact same as a Baroque. I would just rather play a Baroque in this moment.
They're both 7G, 15 aura?
Yes.
Interesting.
So the only way to play Ogi, I was like, it has to be a Sahas deck. Because otherwise, every time, I would rather have a Baroque in this situation. The only reason why I could see maybe putting it in this, Ogi gets 10 times better if you can heal it.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately Adam learned when his opponent Papa controlled his Ogi and healed it.
That hurt.
Papa control healing fire, is that the one that bounces?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. The Ogi, he wasn't too happy. He's like, I was like, so I asked him, how's the Ogis? He's like, they're great when they're not beating down on me.
Yeah. And so I was a card from beta that actually gets overlooked a lot, and I think it hasn't aged as well, but it used to be a very devastating card, was Rejuvenating Springs.
Yes, yeah.
It's definitely on the pricier side now, but it's if you're looking for a heal, I think that's a fun card. Alright, what did we miss? So I don't have much experience with Fab, but it's one-dimensional chain. Genesis has a two-dimensional arena. Yeah, I haven't played Fab enough. I've watched gameplay, but I haven't played it myself. On the other hand, there are some people who I very, very much trust in their opinion, and they talk about how amazing of a game designer James White is and how balanced that game is. So I really want to try it out because there's so much love for it. So, and Darren builds deck and tries to play in one sitting. You should do it. I actually think it's a really good experience of that's why I like sealed so much.
Yeah.
Draft is fun and it's cheaper, but I really like the sealed experience more, especially since you'll walk away with two reasonably good decks. And just the experience of building a deck and trying it out and just seeing if it does well or not.
Yeah.
If you're new to the game, I think it's one of the best ways to start. You do need to know the rules before jumping into it, but the nice part about sealed versus draft is since the card pool is immediately exposed, you can just have a veteran player sit with you and build your first deck.
Yeah.
So I do like sealed.
We did sealed 2 weeks ago on newbie night, and they didn't believe me when I said you can make 2 decks out of the sealed pool. And I did, and then they were like, "Oh well." Will was like, "Clearly the Thymos deck is much better here. You got Baroques, you got Chaos, you got Meteorites, all that." And I don't know if there was Meteorites. I don't remember. But I think actually it was Ajna versus Sahas, and I'm like, "All right, I'll play the Sahas stuff." He got crushed. And more of the story, Will, you got crushed. I don't.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it became my Olgi deck with Puppet Control. Yeah. I'm guessing that's the matchup you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I opened my first box of J2 yesterday, so I should be able to have an idea before Sunday, hopefully. Yeah. There are a lot of good videos. I've done a few videos myself on deck building. Just shortly before J2 came out, I did a video where I opened up some packs and made a sealed, I think a raw deck.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few videos out there. It's just digging into the archive because I've made a lot of videos up to this point about Genesis. There are a lot. So I can just ping me at some point and I'll try to find some videos for you. Alright, more about the whole quiet. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Healing Fire.
I'm not either.
I've seen some people play it really well, but I remember the first game I played against, I was playing against Carl and he was trying to do Healing Fire. Every time he would do it and select his targets, I would find a way to disrupt the chain.
Yeah.
Like Shadows Grasp the summon out or push the summon away. Like just somehow break that chain. And then all of a sudden he's out the aura, he's out the 7G, and usually the summon's dead in response as well.
So. It's definitely a high risk card.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Because building a stack is dangerous. Brought it back, Sid. I brought it back.
Yeah. So, I think the other thing is, we were talking about fighters and stack. would you see cards like? I know we already know some of the stuff that's coming up for Origins, but how far down the rabbit hole do you see mechanic-wise us being able to manipulate the stack?
Like how far can we go with manipulating the stack? Forever.
Like,
do you mean when can we manipulate the stack? We already do.
No, I mean more like, okay, so we have things that count the size of stack.
Yeah.
We have things, we've been testing out ideas that say if this is on a particular point in the stack.
Yeah.
We have cards that pull cards to different points in the stack.
Yep.
How many more, like, are there other things that you would want to explore?
I had a crazy idea, but I'm not going to say it.
How crazy is this?
How crazy is it? It erases the stack, and the stack comes back the following turn.
That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Like, are you creating copies of all those things so you can recreate targets?
That's a great question, but did you know this is madness that came up right now? I haven't fleshed it out.
So, like, this is one of the things that I think is both, it's frustratingly enjoyable about designing in Genesis, is the fact that we have to deal with we have to deal with the board state.
Yeah.
And where things are in relationship to each other.
Yeah.
That's what makes designing certain cards so difficult. Like, I love the chain cards. I love Chain Lightning. I think, flavor-wise, mechanic-wise, it's one of the coolest cards in Genesis.
Yes.
But it just doesn't work. And there's so much nuance to it. So I think duplicating abilities on the stack. We had a card that we tested out a card that duplicated abilities on the stack, and it took a very long time to figure out how to word that.
Yeah.
Because it's not as easy as it is in other games.
We've also tried if abilities fail on the stack.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is actually something I would love to see. So I mentioned this earlier. I have a computer science background. The fundamentals to coding, like how in the fundamentals of math is 1 + 1. The fundamental to coding is if then else.
Yeah.
If do this, if this is true, then do this, else do that.
Yeah.
And I wanted cards to follow that format.
Yeah.
But players just could not.
Yeah, we had
too
an
much
issue
nuance.
where people were like, "Can I just play this and have it fizzle?"
Yeah.
There's a lot of little issues here and there. It was just like the if / then else was, it's like deal 1 damage if you don't draw a card. So they're like, oh, can I just draw a card? I don't want to do 1 damage.
Yeah.
There was all these little things. Damn those future leaguers!
Holding us back from designing what we want to do. But I think I really would love to see that explored a little bit more, because then we can explore the stack of failed cards, right?
Yeah.
Like a card, no matter what happens to this card, it'll create a new ability onto the side. That's one thing we should talk about, triggers.
Oh, triggers.
Oh
boy, triggers.
So we have a concept when we're looking at the risk factor of a card, which is the openness of the card. And openness is a scale from 0 to 5.
Yeah.
And if it does different things, it immediately increases the openness. One of those things is this card swift or not? Is this ability swift or not? That automatically makes it more open. And does this ability have a trigger?
Yeah.
And that instantly makes it more open. Because even a card as simple as Rampage Toss, I think this is an iconic card. It's been in the game since, I mean, you got a beta version here. It's in alpha. It was printed, I think, in the starter kits as well. It's one of the first cards that was put into Genesis. This card, it wasn't until after it was printed and in play that players started realizing triggers really mess up the stack. So, if you don't know what that means, like, if Malik's here, Oni's here, you play Rampage Toss on the stack, it deals the 2 damage. Now the trigger goes onto the stack separately from the original attack ability. So you have the toss trigger, which is the attack ability resolves, which immediately puts the toss trigger onto the stack. Let's put that face down. And then you can respond to this new state of stack by playing another Rampage Toss and putting the letting the attack resolve, putting the toss trigger onto the stack, then do something silly like a backflip. Where's backflip? Here it is. So then you play backflip. You let backflip resolve, and you're now over here. But now toss, since it doesn't require a target, it can resolve from over here, grabbing Oni and tossing Oni to a spot around you.
Yeah.
This resolves. Now the second toss can go off, tossing you somewhere else.
Yeah.
So what I've seen happen was with shoulder throw and teleport, where they put teleport on the stack, did the shoulder throws, compounded the damage. No,
that doesn't work. But I can talk about literally just this other day. I had several gusts. You put the gusts on the stack, but leave the pushes. At the end of it, you let 3 gusts resolve, and your opponent's all the way back here.
Yeah. I think what they did was...
Hello, Jacob. Hello, Jared. I don't think we said hi yet. Continue.
When they're trying to resolve the tosses, they ended up Chrono Walker Temporal Relocate to do the Swift Speed Teleport.
Yeah.
And then tossing me onto a whole bunch of Treacherous Trains. And like you could toss onto the same spot, putting Treacherous Train onto the stack. The other place where the stack really gets messed up is with Stampeding Force.
Yes.
Yeah, where you can...
It's the only thing that triggers versus movement? Triggers on movement currently?
Yes, yeah. So it's currently the only way to create a stack during the move phase.
Yeah.
There are some alterations that can create them, like Rivenai.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah, you're right.
So creating a stack during the move phase is also really messed up for gameplay. Have fun with this one, but just say you have 3 Stampeding Forces, then during your move phase, you move here. So that'll create 3 Stampeding Forces onto the stack. Now, since the stack is open, you can respond to it. So you can play a backflip on top of those Stampeding Forces, moving, if you have flight, right?
Yeah,
moving it onto an opponent, which will keep the original 3 here, adding 3 more, and letting all 6 resolve where you are now at. Now you're still in your move phase, so you can now move again.
Yeah.
So you can hold on to those Stampeding Forces by responding to the Stampeding Forces with other move cards like dodge, backflip, and then create a massive pile of these and just stomp on your opponent really, really hard. Yeah. All right. I think we rambled enough.
But we didn't even go about immediate triggers. They go on the stack, they resolve, that's it.
Yeah, so we made immediate because I could... Kun and Nubia really messed up the game as just being trigger abilities.
Talking about when triggers were weird, how about at the start of the draw phase?
Yes.
Not even the movement phase.
So I remember this very fondly at the championship because I was playing against your Nubia deck and a Nubia's Vision would go into stack. In response to Nubia's Vision, I'll play High Dualist.
Yeah,
stun. Like, stun. And it's like, oh, so I'm just stunned at the beginning of the round. Yep, nothing you can do about it. Yeah, so that's why Nubia and Kun got it rated. And it's funny because Kun got printed as a Patreon promo with the trigger and got it rated to immediate. I don't even know if I've seen anyone play with the trigger Kun.
Trigger Kun in a long time.
Yeah. There were probably like 30 or 40 of those in print, so...
It's true.
Alright. Found an OTK combo on turn 1. So, it is possible to do round 1 OTKs. Yeah. I call them rocks. I tried to get the game design team to do it. I don't know if it's been adopted. Round 1 kill, a rock. It is. I think it is the biggest bane of Genesis right now. Like it is the one thing that.
I would say bane. I'd say the biggest fear because it has never won a tournament. Because bane would mean that it's actually bad.
I'm bad.
It's a matter of time till eventually somebody's got to win with it. But it hasn't been able to.
Yeah.
It hasn't in Champions. It hasn't in Circuit. Hasn't done it in the Future League tournaments. Will's tried many times. Yep. It just never happens.
Yeah. It's way too finicky a deck. I think it's great on the casual level when you're playing like 17 games in very quick succession. But when you're playing games where players are taking their win counts very, very seriously, they're going to find a way out of it, or you're going to stress out and make the wrong move.
Yeah.
There were too many times where the OTK lost because of a miscount of 1.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yes, it does exist. Yes, we have plans for future ways of trying to mitigate it, but if all else fails, there are very, very extreme measures that I have in the back of my mind of how to deal with them, but those are like, if we don't fix this, the game's at threat of just dying. So,
Yeah.
The last resort. Absolute last resort.
Are you referring to the Rain OTK, or do you have something else in mind, Jared, that we've never seen before? I'd be very surprised if it was, but that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I would be cool.
I think the other one that I've seen, which is the Nubia OTK. That's the only other champion.
Yeah, I don't really...
I don't like it as much because it requires you to get... You need teleport.
You need to have teleport. So now you need more tools. You need to... Like, I guess Nubia is more likely to redraw into the combo rather than Rain.
Yes.
I guess that's the theory behind it. But you need now extra pieces.
Yeah.
It's an Infernal Pits OTK with Kendra. Gotcha.
Okay, so similar like the Nubia OTK using Treacherous Train.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's definitely fun. And I think the issue with the OTK is being consistent and being able to have an out. Because the problem with Nubia and Kendra is that if you're that close to your opponent, there's a chance that they could just turn around and kill you before your OTK can go off. Like, your health is just so low. The nice part about Rain was always the fact that Living Shadows was a piece that was just built in.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready and you have the tools available for you, you can just go in.
Yeah.
And the fact that Rain can't OTK against Rain.
Yeah.
So it gives you self-defense.
Yeah, so that's... assuming you're using Kedra, that means you yourself are going to need to draw a teleport.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Because walking over to your opponent is too much work.
However, if your main piece is Infernal Pits, that is a good thing because it's a much lower chi required than the Shadow Claws that we normally see in the Rain OTK.
But how are you dropping them onto the Infernal Pits? Anyways, this is
we don't want to give away your secrets, so we're gonna cut the feed. No.
Wait, where's my closing screen? All right, closing screen, go.
Thank you guys for watching.
All right, have a great one. We'll talk to you next week. Yeah, next week. All right, bye.
Bye.